Thank you for joining me here on this episode of Vegan Police TV. This episode is a bit of a continuing discussion on a previous one about lab-grown meat, cell-grown meat and things like that, and why it's not going to be the saviour of the animals that a lot of vegans are claiming it to be. So starting off, since that time, been involved in a bit of a passionate Twitter discussion with someone about super meat, that they claim it's going to be the saviour of all the animals, and it's the new thing that's coming. Now, I disagree with that. As I said in the previous episode, stated my reasons why. I had a look a bit more into the super meat one, and going to share my thoughts about that and about why I don't think that it's going to be the saviour of the animals. Now, first of all, one of the things that they claim is that it will end world hunger. Now, it won't. Honestly, if Bob Geldof, Bono, and everyone else way back in the 80s and the 90s and whenever that was couldn't solve world hunger, what makes these people at Supermeat think that they can? And the thing with world hunger, it's not a lack of food that is causing the problem. It's the political controls that the relevant dictatorship, socialist organisation, whatever is going on at that controls that country, that they're the ones that are causing the world hunger. It's not the lack of food. For example, most people know that Australia has export arrangements with Indonesia. I think it was 2014 or 2015, there were a number of containers of children frozen meat sent over that were killed here, slaughtered. The animals were slaughtered here and sent overseas. So it was all done halal and whatever else and all that warm fuzziness. That was sent over to Indonesia for the Indonesians to consume. Now, at that point in time, the price for animal flesh had just skyrocketed because of the way that the Indonesian government had set up their import permits. So there's only a certain number of head of animal that can be imported live per country and things like that, and there's a certain amount of tonnage of already processed meat that can be imported into Indonesia at a particular point in time. Now, at this point in time, it was after the live export ban, but Indonesia had reduced their quota because they were looking to head towards self-sufficiency. From there, Australia exported all this meat over. It landed on the dock because even though the price of animal flesh in Indonesia was skyrocketing, it was going through phenomenal price increases, and it literally became something that only the wealthy could afford. All this meat from Australia landed up on the Indonesian ports. They said, no, we can't accept it because it's exceeded the quota. Now, instead of turning around saying, hey, yes, we'll allow all this sort of stuff in, even though it has exceeded the quota, we'll allow it in because it'll feed our population. They've said, no, it's exceeded the quota. No, don't take it. We're not going to accept it. Now, the thing with that, though, is because for it to leave Indonesia and to be granted re-entry back into Australia, it had to have Indonesian export permits and all that sort of stuff done, and then it also had to pass a particular import permits and all that sort of stuff to come into Australia. Now, at that point in time, it was sitting on the dock, so I think it ended up being a month or 2 months. Not quite sure what happened with it in the end. I believe that there's a good chance that it was either disposed of, so that dumped overseas or dumped off a ship somewhere or given somewhere else, but I don't think it came back in the country. And the thing with the exporters from Australia was that it was getting to be too expensive for them to bring it back, so they're paying fees for the product to stay on the Indonesian port. So there's the storage charges, electricity charges and things like that. So, and this is the thing, that this amount of animal flesh coming into Indonesian ports could have reduce the price of animal flesh in that country. They didn't want a bar of it. So for Supermeat to turn around and say that, hey, yes, we're going to solve world hunger, is very, very arrogant on their part. And those people that are continuing that, saying, yes, hey, Supermeat's going to solve world hunger, is very naive and ignorant on their part as well. And the other thing that I want to get into as well is that consuming super meat actually reinforces that the consumption of animal products is acceptable. It's only where the source comes from that makes it unacceptable. So instead of turning around and saying, well, hey, the human body doesn't need animal flesh to survive, it doesn't need dairy to survive, it doesn't need animal protein or eggs or anything else, these vegans promoting this are saying that, hey, yes, the human body does need this. So it's it's this big weird thing. So people are turning around saying that, it's possible to survive on a plant-based diet, which it is. I mean, I've been vegan for 20, 22 years, I think it was, 23 years, something like that, so over 20 years, and it is. Looking a bit dishevelled today because it's public holiday here in Queensland and I couldn't be bothered having a shave or doing the hair and all that sort of stuff. Just in my daggies while I'm at home. Thought I'd record this. So this is the thing, it just makes it that the consumption of animal products is acceptable. It's only the place or the way that these animal products are produced that makes it unacceptable. This also allows it to be that, hey, yes, later on down the track, hey, yes, we're keeping our animals in these socially approved or socially acceptable situations and things like that. We no longer use the traditional methods of slaughtering and killing the animal. They may bring electrocution in, or gassing, or who knows, something that's surpassed or exceeded the current captive bolt stunning and things like that. So there's a different slaughter method. So by saying that, hey, yes, super meat is there, what's wrong with having animals in humane situations and things like that, and then using that to go from and say, here's this meat here. It's perfectly acceptable. The way that the animals have been treated, it's perfectly acceptable. They've been loving family, loving environment. Got Vivaldi playing or Tchaikovsky playing. They sleep on whatever else. They get troughs of unlimited food, unlimited water. It's they've got shade cloth over here. They've got a barn over here where they can come and go whatever they want. Mind you, for that sort of animal flesh, you will pay a huge premium price for it. And this is the thing, is that this is what super meat is doing, and lab-grown meat and all these other things. They're making it acceptable for people to consume animal products. And this is the thing, as a vegan, it's about the removing the exploitation of animals and the use. And the other thing that I'll get into with this other bit too is that they say that they take something painlessly from an animal. So how do they know it's painless? Because they put an anaesthetic in to numb the pain. Well, what about that needle prick? That needle prick still causes pain to the animal. Yes, it may not be at a level that the animal registers, the fight or flight thing, because it's not that amount of pain. It's still painful. You're still exploiting an animal. They've said the claim is that from one biopsy, going by the super meat one, is that they can create an unlimited amount of animal flesh. Now, that may be fine and dandy. You go and photocopy something. You go and photocopy it and the original. You keep the original there. You photocopy something there. So your photocopy, you get rid of that. You photocopy. Sorry, you've got something. You photocopy something. You've got that photocopy. You photocopy the photocopy. Get rid of the first generation photocopy. Keep going. You have a look at how long it takes for that copy to degrade. Now, the same thing's going to happen with this super meat, lab-grown meat, whatever else you want to call it, is that there will become a point in time where whatever they've done is so far removed from the original sample that they're going to need it. And this is the other thing too, is that they say, okay, we have one sample, okay, where, they produce whatever else. So, they might produce, 200 kilos of animal flesh for steak, or for example, for steak. So they've got that. What happens when they want to produce another one? Do they go and get another one, or can they go back to the original biopsy and do that? There's so many things about it where it's not acceptable. And for vegans to turn around and say, yes, we should be promoting it's going to do this, it's going to do that, that is ignorant on your part. It's, it's get away from this worshipping science BS, because it's not that. What you need to be doing is having a look and saying, yes, okay, are we using animals? Yes or no. If we're using animals, it's not acceptable. If we're not using animals, then the product may become acceptable, which is what you can do with all these plant-based products. And this is the thing, as I've said previously, all the money, the technology, the brain power and everything that is going in creating this lab-grown product, why can't we put the same thing in to to improving the taste or the affordability or the way that resources are used for these plant-based products? And for people to turn around and say, oh, but vegan suitable burgers are boring and bland and whatever else. Well, get off your pedestal for worshipping sorry about the bad language there, of Tobias, because it bugs me, it annoys me. Taste is an emotional and purely personal thing. Something that one person finds tasty, another person may not. So for someone to come out and have a blanket statement and blanket claim to say all vegan burgers are boring or bland or taste revolting, it shows that you have no idea. And plus, I mean, it's the thing. Have you tasted a bit of raw meat? That tastes revolting. I mean, I remember, back when I used to be a hunter and things like that, I could not eat raw meat. You have to cook it, which creates a taste for it. You have to season it with something, which creates another taste. So for people to say that vegan burgers are bland and boring, and this is why we need to have these, cell-grown products, is missing the point. Is that when you cook with other things. For years I've had, tofu's bland and tofu's boring. Well, yes. That's why you cook it with other things. You don't just have a plate of tofu by itself. Just like you wouldn't have a plate of oatmeal by itself, because that is dry, boring, bland, and whatever. You put rice milk, you put soy milk on it, you might put a bit of maple syrup, or you might put agave nectar on something like that, just to sweeten it up a bit. So, for these people to say that, vegans that have popular YouTube channels as well, and a large number of readership, to say that vegan burgers are boring and bland, well, that's playing into the hands of those people who don't, who have the vested interest in us still consuming animal products. So anyway, I'm going to end this here. Otherwise, I'm going to have a huge rant. I just thought I'd get out of the car environment and come in here into the office and have a bit of a rant as well. And plus, I sort of need to get on my soapbox about this one. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever else. You all know the deal. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to you joining me on the next episode of Vegan Please TV.